Hello, my best students, and welcome again to your channel, Native Flow. Today, we are going to talk about something that affects millions of people every single day. Something invisible, something powerful, and something most people don't even realize is controlling their behavior. Dopamine addiction. Now, honestly, when people hear the word dopamine, many imagine a dangerous chemical, something harmful, something they should avoid. But that's not true. Dopamine is not the enemy. In fact, your brain needs dopamine. Without dopamine, you wouldn't feel motivated. You wouldn't chase goals. You wouldn't feel excitement. You wouldn't want to learn, create, explore, or achieve anything. Dopamine is one of the brain's most important motivational systems. So if dopamine is necessary, where does the problem begin? The problem begins when modern technology learns how to manipulate it. Because today, your brain is competing against some of the most advanced attention-capturing systems ever created. Social media, short videos, notifications, video games, online shopping, endless scrolling, instant entertainment, all designed to trigger small dopamine rewards over and over again. And honestly, many people don't realize what's happening. They think they are choosing, but often their attention is being trained, their habits are being shaped, their focus is being weakened little by little, day after day. Now think about this. How many times have you opened your phone to do one thing and then found yourself scrolling 20 minutes later? How many times have you watched one short video and then watched 20 more? How many times have you promised yourself just 5 more minutes, only to realize an hour has passed? This isn't simply laziness, and it isn't necessarily a lack of discipline. There is psychology behind it. There is neuroscience behind it. And once you understand it, you begin seeing your habits very differently. In this episode, you will discover what dopamine actually is, why modern apps are so addictive, how dopamine affects motivation and focus, why instant gratification can damage long-term success, how dopamine addiction changes the brain, and how you can regain control of your attention and your life. And while listening, you will improve your English naturally through psychology vocabulary, neuroscience vocabulary, technology vocabulary, listening practice, storytelling, and deep comprehension. So relax, listen carefully. And let's begin with fact number 1, what dopamine really is and why most people misunderstand it. Before we continue, let me tell you something important. Watching free videos can help you learn, but real transformation happens when you stop consuming and start committing. That's exactly why I created the English Master Course. This isn't just another English course. It's a complete English learning system designed to help you finally stop struggling and start speaking with confidence. Inside, you'll get step-by-step video lessons, practical exercises, worksheets, PDFs, books, direct WhatsApp support, exclusive bonuses, and a community of motivated learners who are on the same journey as you. But the most valuable thing isn't the content, it's the guidance. Because most learners don't fail because they're not smart enough. They fail because they feel lost, overwhelmed, and inconsistent. That's why you're never alone inside this course. When you have questions, you can reach out. When you need help, you can ask. When you lose motivation, you'll find support. This is not school English. This is real English for real life. English for conversations. English for opportunities. English for confidence. English for the future you want to build. And the best part? You don't just get access to what's available today. You'll continue receiving future updates, new materials, bonus resources, and improvements as the course grows. One decision today can completely change the way you learn English for years to come. So if you're serious about becoming fluent, if you're tired of starting over, if you're ready to invest in yourself and finally take your English to the next level, click the link below. Join the English Master Course. Learn once, improve forever. Let's begin your journey to real English fluency. Fact number 1, what dopamine really is and why most people misunderstand it. Let's begin with one of the biggest myths on the internet. Many people believe dopamine is the chemical of pleasure. But honestly, that's not completely true. And understanding this difference changes everything, because dopamine is not primarily about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation, motivation, desire, pursuit. It is the brain's way of saying, pay attention. This might be important. Go get that. And honestly, this system helped humans survive for thousands of years. Imagine our ancestors. They needed motivation to hunt, to find food, to explore, to build shelter, to solve problems. Without motivation, survival would have been much harder. That's where dopamine came in. It pushed people toward action, toward rewards, toward opportunities. And honestly, that system is still inside your brain today. The problem is that your brain was designed for a completely different world. A world without smartphones, without social media, without infinite entertainment, without notifications appearing every few minutes. Your dopamine system evolved slowly. Technology evolved rapidly. And now, many modern companies understand your dopamine system extremely well, sometimes better than you do. Now let's talk about something fascinating. Imagine you're hungry. You smell delicious food. Before you even take the first bite, dopamine begins increasing. Notice something important. The reward hasn't arrived yet, but dopamine already appears. Why? Because dopamine motivates pursuit. It motivates action. The anticipation itself becomes powerful. Now think about social media. You open an app. You don't know what you'll see. Maybe a funny video. Maybe an exciting message. Maybe a surprising notification. Maybe something interesting. Maybe nothing. That uncertainty matters. Psychologists call this a variable reward system. And honestly, it is incredibly powerful because the brain becomes obsessed with unpredictable rewards. Think about slot machines in casinos. People don't know when they will win. That's what makes them addictive. Now compare that to scrolling. You don't know when the next exciting video will appear. You don't know when the next interesting post will arrive. You don't know when the next notification will appear. And your brain keeps searching. Searching, because dopamine keeps saying, maybe the next one, maybe the next one, maybe the next one. Now here's something shocking. Many people believe they are addicted to pleasure, but often they are addicted to anticipation, the chase, the possibility, the next reward, not necessarily the reward itself. And honestly, this explains why people sometimes keep scrolling even when they are no longer enjoying it. The behavior continues. The excitement disappears, but the pursuit remains. Now let's talk about motivation. Because dopamine affects much more than social media. It affects studying, working, exercise, learning English, building businesses, developing skills, everything. Now imagine two situations. In the first situation, you spend 2 hours watching short videos, instant rewards, instant entertainment, instant stimulation. In the second situation, you spend 2 hours learning a difficult skill, reading, practicing, thinking, growing. Which one feels easier? Usually the first, because the reward arrives immediately. The second requires effort before reward. And honestly, this is where many modern people struggle. Their brains become trained to expect instant gratification. Now here's another fascinating truth. The more frequently your brain receives easy rewards, the harder ordinary activities may start feeling. Reading becomes boring, studying becomes difficult, deep work becomes exhausting. Long-term goals feel less exciting, not because those activities changed, but because your brain became accustomed to constant stimulation. And honestly, this is one reason attention spans appear shorter today than in previous generations. The brain adapts to what it repeatedly experiences. Now here's something important. Dopamine itself is not bad. Let's be very clear. Without dopamine, you wouldn't pursue goals. You wouldn't dream. You wouldn't improve. You wouldn't feel ambition. The goal is not eliminating dopamine. The goal is understanding it, managing it, using it wisely. Because once you understand how dopamine works, you begin seeing modern technology differently. You begin understanding your habits differently. And most importantly, you begin understanding yourself differently. Now, before we finish this fact, I want you to remember something important. You are not fighting dopamine. You are learning how to work with it. Because dopamine is not your enemy. Mismanaged dopamine is the problem. And in the next fact, we'll discover why social media, short videos, notifications, and modern apps are so effective at capturing attention and keeping people hooked for hours. Fact number 2, why modern apps are designed to keep you addicted. Now let's talk about something that many people feel, but very few truly understand. Why is it so hard to stop scrolling? Why do people open Instagram for 5 minutes and stay there for an hour? Why does YouTube recommend exactly the next video you want to watch? Why do notifications feel so difficult to ignore? And honestly, the answer is not accidental. Modern apps are not simply competing for your money. They are competing for your attention. And attention has become one of the most valuable resources in the world. Think about it. The longer you stay on a platform, the more advertisements you see, the more content you consume, the more data the company collects, the more profitable you become. So naturally, technology companies invest billions of dollars understanding human behavior, not because they're evil, but because attention is business. Now here's something fascinating. When you open social media, you enter a world built by psychologists, designers, engineers, and data scientists. Their goal is simple: keep you engaged, keep you watching, keep you scrolling, keep you returning, and honestly, they've become extremely good at it. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful psychological systems ever discovered. Variable rewards. Remember this phrase, because it explains a lot of modern behavior. A variable reward means you don't know exactly when the reward will arrive. Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's disappointing, and that unpredictability keeps the brain engaged. Now think about scrolling. You see a boring post, a funny video, an advertisement, a shocking story, a motivational clip, a celebrity update, a joke, a sports highlight. You never know what's next. And honestly, that's exactly why it's difficult to stop. Your brain keeps thinking, maybe the next one will be interesting. Maybe the next one will be better. Maybe the next one will surprise me. And suddenly, 30 minutes disappear. Now here's something even more powerful. Notifications. That little sound, that little vibration, that little red icon. Why does it feel so difficult to ignore? Because notifications trigger anticipation. You don't know who contacted you. You don't know what happened. You don't know what information is waiting. And your brain becomes curious. Curiosity creates dopamine. Dopamine creates attention. Attention creates action. Before you realize it, you're checking your phone again. Now here's something interesting. Many people blame themselves for weak discipline. But honestly, sometimes they're fight-in systems specifically designed to capture attention. That's important to understand, because awareness creates power. Once you understand the system, you stop seeing yourself as lazy. You start seeing the psychological mechanisms influencing your behavior. Now let's talk about short videos. TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. Why are they so addictive? Because they combine several dopamine triggers simultaneously. Fast rewards, novelty, uncertainty, endless availability, no stopping point. Think about a television episode. It ends. A movie ends. A book chapter ends. There is a natural stopping point, but endless scrolling has no ending, no finish line, no completion, just infinite content. And honestly, the brain struggles with infinite rewards because there is always one more video, one more post, one more notification, one more possibility. Now here's another hidden consequence. Over time, constant stimulation can change expectations. Normal life begins feeling slower. Reading feels harder. Studying feels harder. Deep conversations require more patience. Long-term goals feel less exciting. Why? Because real life rarely delivers rewards every 10 seconds. And honestly, this is where dopamine addiction starts creating problems. Not because people enjoy technology, but because technology becomes their primary source of stimulation. Now imagine someone trying to learn English, reading a book, practicing listening, building vocabulary. These activities require patience, effort, consistency, growth over time. But if the brain has become conditioned to instant rewards, those valuable activities may feel unusually difficult, not because the person is incapable, but because their reward system has been trained differently. Now here's something powerful. The goal is not eliminating technology. That's unrealistic. The goal is regaining control, because there is a huge difference between using technology intentionally and being controlled by technology unconsciously. One creates freedom, the other creates dependency. Now, before we finish this fact, I want you to remember something important. The most successful companies in the world understand attention extremely well. And if you want to protect your focus, you must understand attention too. Because once you understand the game, you stop playing it blindly. And in the next fact, we'll discover how dopamine addiction quietly destroys focus, motivation, and productivity without most people even noticing. Fact number 3, how dopamine addiction destroys focus and motivation. Now let's talk about one of the biggest misconceptions in modern psychology. Many people believe dopamine addiction increases motivation. But honestly, the opposite often happens. Too much easy dopamine can actually reduce motivation for important things. And understanding this may completely change the way you see productivity. Now imagine two people. The first person spends several hours every day consuming short videos, social media, notifications, online entertainment, constant digital stimulation. The second person spends more time on activities that require effort, reading, learning, building skills, working on goals, practicing English. Which person is more likely to maintain deep focus? Usually the second one. Why? Because focus is like a muscle, and dopamine addiction quietly weakens it. Now, here's something fascinating. Your brain adapts to the level of stimulation it receives repeatedly. If your brain becomes accustomed to receiving excitement every few seconds, ordinary activities start feeling less rewarding. Reading 10 pages of a book feels slow. Studying English vocabulary feels boring. Working on a business feels difficult. Exercising feels less exciting. Not because these activities became worse, but because your brain's expectations changed. And honestly, this is one of the hidden dangers of constant stimulation. Now let's talk about attention. Imagine trying to watch a 2-hour movie. Years ago, many people could do this comfortably. Today, some people check their phone every few minutes, not because the movie is bad, but because their brain has become trained to seek novelty constantly. Something new, something faster, something more stimulating, and this creates a dangerous cycle. The more stimulation you consume, the harder focus becomes. The harder focus becomes. The more stimulation you seek. And honestly, many people get trapped inside this loop without realizing it. Now, here's another important psychological truth. Motivation and pleasure are not the same thing. This surprises many people because modern culture often treats them as identical, but they are very different. Pleasure is enjoying something. Motivation is being willing to work towards something. And dopamine addiction often increases pleasure consumption while reducing effort tolerance. Think about that carefully. A person may spend hours consuming entertainment, but struggle to spend 30 minutes building a meaningful skill. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack potential, but because their brain has become conditioned toward easy rewards. Now let's apply this to English learning. This is very important. Many learners say, I want to improve my English. But when it's time to read, listen, practice speaking, learn vocabulary, they feel resistance. Why? Partly because language learning offers delayed rewards. You don't become fluent overnight. You improve gradually. And honestly, the brain addicted to instant gratification often struggles with delayed gratification. That's why successful learners develop patience. They learn to trust the process, even when the reward is not immediate. Now, here's something fascinating. Many of the most valuable things in life provide slow rewards. Fluency, fitness, knowledge, relationships, business success, confidence, financial growth. None of these arrive instantly. They require consistent effort over time. But dopamine addiction trains the brain to expect immediate results. And that expectation creates frustration. Now imagine planting a tree. You water it today. Nothing happens. You water it tomorrow. Still nothing. A week later, almost nothing. A month later, small changes. But eventually, the growth becomes obvious. Success often works exactly the same way. And honestly, people with strong focus understand this deeply. They don't need rewards every few minutes. they can tolerate progress that unfolds slowly. Now, here's another hidden consequence. Dopamine addiction often damages boredom tolerance, and boredom is more valuable than most people realize, because boredom often creates creativity, reflection, problem solving, new ideas, innovation. When the brain is constantly entertained, it rarely gets the opportunity to explore its own thoughts. And honestly, some of humanity's greatest ideas were born during quiet moments, not during endless scrolling. Now, here's the good news. The brain is adaptable, very adaptable. If habits can weaken focus, new habits can rebuild it. Focus can improve. Attention can recover. Motivation can strengthen again. And honestly, many people begin noticing changes surprisingly quickly once they reduce unnecessary stimulation. Now, before we finish this fact, I want you to remember something important. Dopamine addiction doesn't steal your intelligence. It doesn't destroy your potential, but it can quietly steal your attention. And attention is one of the most valuable assets you possess, because whatever controls your attention often controls your future. Fact number 4, the hidden signs that dopamine addiction is controlling your life. Now let's talk about something very important, because many people hear the phrase dopamine addiction and immediately think, that's not me. I can stop anytime. I'm just relaxing. I'm just having fun. And honestly, sometimes that's true. But sometimes, people don't realize how much control certain habits have gained over their daily lives, because dopamine addiction usually doesn't arrive dramatically. It arrives quietly, little by little, day after day, until certain behaviors start feeling automatic. Now, here's the first hidden sign. Sign number 1. You constantly check your phone without a reason. Think about this honestly. How many times have you picked up your phone today? Not because you needed it, not because somebody called you, not because there was something important, just because, almost automatically, you unlock it, look around, close it. Then 5 minutes later, you do it again. And honestly, many people don't even realize they're doing it anymore. The behavior becomes unconscious. Now, here's something fascinating. Many studies show that simply having a phone nearby can reduce concentration, even when you're not using it. Why? Because part of your brain remains aware of the possibility of stimulation, the possibility of a notification, a message, an update. And that possibility quietly consumes attention. Now let's move to the second sign. Sign number 2. You feel bored. Extremely quickly. This one is huge. Imagine standing in a line, waiting for a friend, sitting quietly for a few minutes. What happens? Many people immediately reach for their phone, not because they need information, but because boredom feels uncomfortable. And honestly, this is one of the strongest signs of dopamine overstimulation, because boredom itself is not dangerous. Boredom is natural. In fact, boredom often creates creativity, reflection, problem solving, new ideas. But a brain accustomed to constant stimulation begins treating boredom like an emergency, something that must be eliminated immediately. Now here's the third sign. Sign number 3. You struggle to focus on one thing for long. Reading a book, watching a long documentary, studying English, learning a skill, working deeply. Many people notice something strange. After only a few minutes, they feel the urge to switch. Check the phone, open another tab, watch another video, look for something more stimulating. And honestly, this isn't always laziness. It's often attention fragmentation, The brain becomes trained to jump constantly between rewards. Now let's talk about another hidden sign. Sign number 4. Real achievements feel less exciting. This one surprises many people. Imagine achieving something meaningful, finishing a project, improving your English, completing a workout, learning a new skill. These achievements should feel rewarding. But for some people, they don't feel as satisfying as they once did. Why? Because instant rewards are competing with delayed rewards, and instant rewards usually arrive faster, much faster. Now here's the problem. The most valuable things in life often require delayed gratification, months of effort, weeks of practice, years of growth. But dopamine addiction trains the brain to prefer immediate gratification. And honestly, that can make long-term success much harder. Now here's another sign. Sign number 5. You feel restless. During quiet moments, remember our episode about silence? This connects directly. Many people can no longer sit quietly. No music, no video, no scrolling, no stimulation, just themselves. And honestly, that should concern us. Because silence used to be normal. Thinking used to be normal. Reflection used to be normal. Now, many people feel uncomfortable whenever stimulation disappears. Now, here's something fascinating psychologically. The brain addicted to stimulation often mistakes peace for boredom. Think about that. Peace begins feeling uncomfortable. Stillness begins feeling uncomfortable. Quietness begins feeling uncomfortable. And honestly, that's a sign the reward system may need rebalancing. Now let's talk about one final sign. Sign number 6. You know it's hurting you, but you keep doing it. This may be the strongest sign of all. You know you're wasting time. You know you're procrastinating. You know you should be doing something more important. But somehow, you keep returning to the same behavior. Again, and again, and again. Why? Because knowledge alone does not control behavior. Awareness helps, but habits are powerful, very powerful. And honestly, this is why understanding dopamine matters so much. Because once you recognize the patterns, you stop blaming yourself blindly. You stop saying, I'm lazy, I'm weak, I have no discipline. Instead, you begin understanding the system influencing your behavior. And once you understand the system, you can start changing it. Now, before we finish this fact, I want you to remember something important. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. Because you cannot change a habit you refuse to notice. And the moment you start noticing these signs, you begin taking back control, little by little, day by day, choice by choice. Fact number 5, how to reset your dopamine system and regain control of your life. Now we've reached the most important fact of the entire episode, because understanding dopamine is useful, but changing your life is even more useful. And honestly, this is where many people make a mistake. They hear about dopamine addiction and immediately think, I need to delete everything. No more social media. No more entertainment. No more technology. But that's usually not the answer. The goal is not to eliminate dopamine. The goal is to regain control. Because remember, dopamine itself is not the problem. Your brain needs dopamine. Your goals need dopamine. Your motivation needs dopamine. Your future depends on dopamine. The problem begins when easy rewards become stronger than meaningful rewards. And honestly, that balance can be restored. Now let's start with the first strategy. Strategy number 1, reduce easy rewards before important tasks. Imagine waking up in the morning. The first thing you do is spend 40 minutes scrolling through social media, watching videos, checking notifications, consuming entertainment. What happens? Your brain receives a huge amount of stimulation before you've accomplished anything. Now compare that with someone who reads, studies, exercises, works, or practices English first. Their brain learns something different. It learns that effort comes before reward. And honestly, this small change can completely transform productivity. Now here's the second strategy. Strategy number 2, learn to tolerate boredom. Again, this sounds simple, but it's powerful because boredom is not your enemy. Boredom is often the doorway to focus, the doorway to creativity, the doorway to deep thinking. Now try something. The next time you're waiting somewhere, don't immediately reach for your phone. Just wait, observe, think, reflect, even for a few minutes. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, but honestly, that discomfort is part of the training. You're teaching your brain that not every moment needs stimulation. Now let's move to the third strategy. Strategy number 3, make difficult activities easier to start. Here's something important. Most people don't struggle with finishing. They struggle with starting. So don't tell yourself, I'm going to study English for 3 hours. Tell yourself, I'm going to study for 5 minutes. 5 minutes feels easy. And honestly, once people start, continuing becomes much easier. This works because motivation often follows action, not the other way around. Many people wait to feel motivated. Successful people often start first. Then motivation appears later. Now here's another powerful strategy. Strategy number 4, create delayed gratification habits. Delayed gratification simply means learning to enjoy rewards that arrive later. Think about learning English, building a business, getting fit, saving money, reading books. These activities don't provide instant rewards, but they create enormous rewards over time. And honestly, people who master delayed gratification often achieve extraordinary things, not because they're smarter, but because they're willing to wait. Now let's talk about attention, because attention may be the most valuable resource you own. Money can be lost and earned again. Time cannot. Attention determines where your time goes, and where your time goes, your life follows. Think about that carefully. Whatever captures your attention repeatedly begins shaping your future. That's why protecting attention matters so much. Now here's another strategy. Strategy number 5, replace, don't just remove. Many people try to quit bad habits, but they forget something important. Empty space rarely stays empty. If you remove a habit, replace it with something better. Replace endless scrolling with reading, walking, learning, exercise, conversation, podcasts, language practice, because the brain naturally